Town Hall meeting for the town of Ossining. Please stand for the pledge. We don't have Anne Marie. Do we have an agenda?
Do we have an agenda?
Yeah. Well, our first item on our agenda tonight is Stuart Kahan with the to talk about the ethics. Do you want to come and sit at this? You can either sit at the next to Wayne, or you can stand at that
Why don't I
podium.
stand? I've been sitting all day.
Okay.
Tax certiorari stuff, so I'd rather.
So Mr. Kahan, Stuart Kahan, is a member of our ethics board, and we have charged the ethics board with revising it so we can make it a tighter, would you say, and more. How would you?
More in compliance with the recommended standards.
Right. So Stuart is here tonight to give us his the team's recommendations, and he is representing the ethics board.
Thank you, Supervisor. Sandy Hirsch, who's the other member of the board, and Mark Reisman, Deputy Town Attorney, we've all met together on a couple of occasions. We've communicated via email. They are both away, so I have stepped into the fray.
Hold on one second. Matt, can you hear him? You need to get,
higher? How's that?
and you have to be able to hear you.
Here we go.
Good.
What we did is we started with the town's ordinance. We looked at some of other village ordinances throughout Westchester, particularly the Village of Ossining's ordinance. We looked at the town of Greenberg's ordinance. And we also looked at the general municipal law, particularly general municipal law, Article 18, which begins with Section 800, which is really, in many cases, the default provision for ethics codes. We think that basically there are a few changes to the current town ordinance which we would recommend. The first is simply to increase the membership of the board to 5 members. It is currently at 3. Our view is that it should be 5 members who should serve for designated terms, basically staggered terms, but not to serve at the pleasure of the board, which is the current language, I believe, in the statute now. We don't think there's any need for any alternate members, and those 5 members would be town residents. I believe that the deputy town attorney would be the liaison between the town board and the Board of Ethics. The current town code essentially provides that the board would simply provide advisory opinions when there is an inquiry from either some employee, some member of the board. Our view was to expand that somewhat similarly to what the village has, to allow the board to basically provide opinions to the town in the event that there is a question as to whether there has been a violation of the ethics code in line with Article 18, or if in fact an individual who is not an employee wants to make a complaint. Currently, there is no procedure under the town code which would allow a person to come in and make a complaint. We debated this back and forth, and what we came up with was essentially that a person could file a complaint which they would have to affirm to. They would have to sign it. It can't be anonymous. Our recommendation is they file it with the town clerk, and then the town clerk would transmit that to this board, and the board would then transmit it over to the ethics board to make a determination. All we would be still would be an advisory board. We could hear testimony if we so thought it necessary. We decided we did not need subpoena power, don't want subpoena power, but that the employees who generally have to provide their information anyway, if called in, would be able to provide us with the information that we need. We would then make a determination or render an opinion, and then we would hand it over to the board, and the board can make whatever determination it ultimately wants to make in that particular regard. That would allow the public to do that. We thought it could go up on the town website. It could be a simple form, simply saying if you want to make this complaint, they can make it. But the important thing is it has to be signed by the individual, and it can't be an anonymous application. We think that all town employees should be made aware of the ethics code, either that they're provided with a copy or that they know where they can get themselves to get a copy. In our discussions, one of the things that we came through was that there was a question as to would our particular deliberations be subject to freedom of information. Mark Reisman did some research on that, and his view is that it would not be, because basically we're an advisory committee anyway. We would not be making a final determination. So that any of our opinions, any of things like that would not be, and even if it were, it would be significantly redacted. It would not include names or anything like that. So in that regard, we thought that was the important thing. But basically, we think, and it's something that is contained within the village's code, is to make reference to the general municipal law as essentially being the default. If it's not within our code, use what the general municipal law says. It provides various examples of what kind of ethics violations are and what the boards of ethics can do, both on a municipal level, on a county level, and rather than having to write a large ethics code, and I can show you that Greenberg's is 20 pages, we don't need something like that. Greenberg, for example, gives their board the power to, in fact, make determinations. We don't want the power to make determinations. We don't think we should have to make the determination. And frankly, in the, I guess, 4 or 5 years I've been on the board, I think we've been asked 3 times to basically look at something. Now, only one came from the public, but we think that if you allow the public to do that, which to us would be the biggest change, you may get some more coming in. And again, we would, the 5 members of the board would deliberate with the assistance of counsel from the town, and that would allow us then to make a determination, refer it back to you folks for whatever it would ultimately have to be. The ordinance that you have now is basically fine. It has worked up to this point. We just think it should be open more to allow the public to make those complaints, get more board members. As I said, I think 5 is a fair number. You could go as low as 3, but I think 5 at least opens it up to more people to make and get a greater view. And that would then allow those people to make their determinations and let the public come in. We could do an investigation if we have to do one. Most employees know that they have to provide the information if such things are requested. If it's a private individual who's making a complaint, clearly they're going to have to assist us as well. If they don't, their complaint's going to get dismissed. It's as simple as that. And that would basically be it. But in terms of the ordinance itself, that's really where we thought those changes should be. Increase the membership, make it subject to terms not to the pleasure of the board, open up the process so that if the public wants to make a complaint, they can make it, and expand the board's authority to hear those complaints once referred from the town board, and after that referral, then refer back to you folks within a set period of time, be it 30 days, 45 days at the most, to basically advise you of what our opinion is. You take our opinion and you can do with it basically whatever you please. That's really where we thought everything should go.
I just have one change that I might make to it,
Sure.
and that would be that I could see everyone that wanted to make a complaint going through the clerk's office, but I would want it simultaneously sent to the town board as it was sent to the ethics board. It should not be the town board, because it might be someone on the town board. So so I would like to see, and we can check the legality. I know it works because that's the way the village does it, because I was on the village board when that ethics law was written. So, but I would like it to be sent simultaneously to the ethics, and then you could come back to us and say, we see no merit to this, or we see merit to this. What do you think?
I don't know. I like the idea of it being funneled through the town board, and if it's about one of the town board members, that member would recuse him or herself. But whatever is the most fair. I think
it gives it a little bit
judicious.
more transparency, But,
That's
yeah.
fine. Transparency is good.
And it can also, the ordinance can provide that if a complaint is made, the town board shall refer to the Board of Ethics.
Oh, yeah.
Not even a may. So
Right.
that way, it's
Okay.
mandatory that it has to be referred within X, number of days.
So if
So
they're
it's almost
control.
ministerial. It just goes over to that, goes
Yeah.
over to the Ethics Board, and then we get it back, to you folks, and we do it that way. And I think that would be fine, and then, there's simultaneous notification. We didn't want to overload the clerk's office in event that people
Right.
start suddenly coming in. But at the same time, we didn't want people to just start sending letters in and saying, you know, we have these kind of complaints. So that was the balance. But that's always subject to change.
I think what we found with the village at the very, very beginning, there was like maybe a couple of extra ones, but then it got down to, you know, people taking it very seriously,
Right.
Understanding that it's an important thing. So, council?
I have a
What's your-
question, actually. I just want to know if the committee took a look at all at some of the substantive provisions of the code, in particular, some of the definitions or standards of conduct, or such as an example, perhaps refining 20-4 conflicts of interest, or refining or perhaps even adding to 20-5, which are the standards of conduct, perhaps better defining or even adding to the list there, which goes from A to H currently. I was just wondering if the committee looked at that at all.
We did look at it to some extent, Mr. Spector. Part of what we did was we also utilized the general municipal law, which in fact does give a lot of those standards of conduct. And one of our views was, as I said, the village has very good language, which essentially says, go to Article 18 of the general municipal law, and we're basically adopting that, unless we are in fact going beyond that. And we think that if we add that particular kind of language in there, we can make that. We can always add standards of conduct to what we have here, but we thought that what was in the general municipal law promulgated by the state was sufficient, particularly given the number of complaints we've gotten to this point and where we've been. It's an issue that can obviously be revisited, but we thought using it that way we could do that. And as I said, the village has, we thought, was good language to utilize Article 18. And in fact, many of the municipalities specifically refer to Article 18 within their preliminary language for their ethics codes.
Just as an example, Article 18 covers, acceptance of gifts,
Yes.
which is not stated in our standards of conduct. I don't believe it's specifically stated, but Article 18 does cover it.
Right. And I think there's also a question as to how high you want the gift to be. You know,
You
I
could-
think it's $75
In our
In
regular,
Article 18,
yeah.
so,
Under Article 18, it's $75.
Right.
And we've been using that standard ever since I've been supervisor, so, you know.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Thanks for all your work on this.
I'd like to thank Stephen and the rest of the board.
you're all welcome. Thank you very much.
You've done a terrific job, thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, we can, if you want, actually start putting something to writing. So
Yes.
if you want to actually see
I
it.
think Eric has a couple of questions,
Go
and
ahead,
then.
Sue.
Yes, thank you, Madam Supervisor. So I also, Mayor, Councilmember Harder's thanks to you and your committee there. We appreciate you taking a look at this. You mentioned that the deputy town attorney would act as a liaison. I think currently our town council is a member of the board. Would that remain in place, or with a
No,
5-member board with the
It
town
would be
council?
5 members with no town employees on the board. It would
Okay.
be, and the deputy town attorney would be the liaison, but we would not have the town attorney or the deputy as an actual member of the board, but they would advise us in the event, you know, for all circumstances.
I think that's a more proper role for the town council, whether it be the town attorney or deputy town attorney. It's also, I believe, more in conformity with what is the recommended procedures
Good.
for membership.
Okay, and then is there any requirement or restriction as to how many members of the board should be attorneys versus non-attorneys?
No, I mean, currently, Sandy Hirsch and I are attorneys, but frankly, I'd rather have fewer than more. So there's no restriction on that.
Okay.
So really, it's more, you open it up, you folks do the interview process, and whoever you want to put on the board is absolutely fine.
I think, as far as the standards of conduct, I'm glad you brought that up, because in a previous discussion in this room, we had talked about possibly implementing something where, on an annual basis, there was some notice that was delivered to employees. I don't know if it was going to be part of the modified code, but just to create a standards of conduct that would be part, and I understand it's in Article 18, but I was going to say maybe actually just transcribe that for whatever it's worth, put it in hours, and then refer to that on an annual basis when we're sending out notice to town employees saying, by the way, this is part of our town code, these are the standards of conduct. We send this out as a matter of, form every year, but we thought you ought to know that these are in the town code, so, just as sort of like a constant reminder that people are watching
I
and paying
can,
attention.
and that's an excellent suggestion. The Greenberg Code specifically provides, for example, that the town attorney, it says here, shall cause the distribution of a copy of the Code of Ethics to each appointed officer and employee upon employment with the town, and at least once every 3 years thereafter while employed by the town. If there are substantive amendments, the employees must get the substantive amendments. It also provides that each public officer, employee, or agency member shall acknowledge in writing by a statement filed of public record that they've received a copy of the code. So it works both ways. That certainly can be put into ours so that it can be provided and work both ways. So that's fine.
I would think you could also just incorporate it into the employee manual. That goes out to all employees. Maybe that's the easiest way to do it. No, it's not. Oh, just to streamline it. Who better?
Stuart?
Yes.
Please accept my apologies for the gaffe.
Oh, my goodness, don't worry about it. As long as the name is right on the check, I don't have to worry about this.
I do have a question about the issue of legal representation. Is that a standard that's going to be used, and can we expect, or should that be written into the code?
We didn't discuss, Councilman Hart, specifically the issue of legal representation. We did discuss the question as to whether, for example, under the CSE agreement, and I defer to you folks on that, whether if there is a complaint made against an employee, does that employee have the right to have a representative at the hearing? I would presume the answer would be yes. And I would think that if a person was making a complaint and wanted to have a representative, be it counsel or not there, we would have no objection, obviously, if that person wanted to come in there. And I guess what we can always do is say to the person, you can be afforded the right if you want to come in and have a representative on your behalf. That's fine. I would think the employee, depending on the significance of the charge, may well want to have a representative, be it a union rep or be it a, be it counsel.
If it got to the point of, up to the point of the ethics board, and then there would be required to have it. And when you're writing your thing, it's CSEA and the Teamsters, we have Teamsters too.
Okay, got it.
Teamsters Local 456. It's an easy one to remember.
Yeah. And of course, the other point of that, and we discussed it somewhat obliquely in our discussions, deals obviously, then you get into civil service issues, which
Right.
is something else. And, so it hasn't come up yet, but if it does, that's just something. But certainly in terms of the ability to have that representation, we can certainly make have that provision in there. And that can be something, when it's given to the employees, they can know that if they want that, they certainly have that right.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a secondary penalty phase, which the code provides for, which includes perhaps as high as like the firing of the employee, perhaps. But then you'd have to go by with whatever union contracts provide for in terms of grievances and how that process is going to work. So
Okay.
this could work
I want to
separately from that, actually.
I want to join in and thank you for the work. I also want to say I think that the suggestion to expand so that citizens or residents or can come in and make any kind of file a complaint. I think that's absolutely something that we should provide to our residents an option. And so I think these are great suggestions, and I appreciate your work.
Mr. Khan, I just want, I thank you for all your hard work.
Sure.
And again, I agree, because I said before, if you can get somebody on your board that is not an attorney, you need the people
Yeah.
who,
You need the variety.
middleman need to be represented. And if you can, that would be good, but if you can't, you do what you have to do.
Oh, I'm a fee arbitrator, so I decide fee disputes between attorneys and clients. I much prefer it when on my panel And in fact, if it's a three-person panel, you must have a layperson on the panel. They're much tougher on fees than the attorneys, as you can imagine. So I'm more than happy to have a layperson on the panel. Absolutely thrilled. I think it would be fine, and you know, having 5 lawyers, you're going to have 6 opinions. So
Yeah.
you wanna, trust me, it would be. I'd much prefer it.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? Because we'd like you to go back and put a draft together of
Yes.
this, and then sit with, you know, and between vacations and stuff, we know that it will be, we'll expect it back sometime in August,
Fine.
and then we can move forward on this, and then put out some feelers for, you know, in probably early September, put out feelers, because that's when everybody's vacations are over and everything, for people to join the Ethics Board. And I really want to thank you, too. I think you
Very
guys
welcome.
have done a tremendous job, and I think it's very important that as this government runs, we try to be so efficient and transparent and everything that our ethics law should reflect that. So thank you very much.
I appreciate. Thank you, and I'll let Sandy and Mark know as well. Thanks very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Our next item on our agenda is, we have Lieutenant Alongi here from the County Police. He is our liaison, and, yeah, come on up. And he's going to talk about the Your Cop program, and then we have some questions about North State Road and some noises and stuff, not necessarily to a particular establishment. So
Understood.
let's go. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. Nick Alongi, I'm Westchester County Police. I'm a lieutenant who's the liaison for municipalities. First on the agenda, like the supervisor was saying, we have the Your Cop program. Your Cop program has been going on for a little while. Actually, Chief Donato, I believe, was the one who brought it over. It's a great idea. It's been used in a lot of the communities. And basically what it does is you have places like the NYPD have CPOP, have community policing units, you know, obviously because they have 48,000 members or whatever of their department, so they could do that. Whereas in smaller departments, such as when it was the Town of Ossining Police Department, they divided it up. Because obviously when you have officers in the neighborhood, in their daily interactions, they're talking to people, they're going to calls, they're stopping by, they're saying hi, waving, doing a cul-de-sac politicking, as I like to say, going around the cul-de-sacs and saying hi to people, getting to know people. But what happens is you really, you know, sometimes it was found that, well, you know, I mean, there's a couple police officers as shifts rotate and days off rotate. A couple police officers that I see, it'd be nice if I had one that I can kind of go to. Because we all have little issues in our communities that, do you need to call 911 for, or do you need to call and say, I need a cop right now? Probably not. Obviously not. So what the idea was to divide the unincorporated part of the town into, technically speaking, 9 sub-neighborhoods. You know, they use the terminology of, I think, extended neighborhoods. 8 of them being residential, 1 of them being commercial. And commercial is obviously North State Road. And each police officer, each cop, gets a carved-out part of the town, and that officer becomes the community relations officer for that part of the town, basically. So they get calls from everything from, you know, hey, you know, my neighbor's dog keeps digging up my yard, and quite frankly, I don't know how to talk to them. What do? Do I just go and knock on the door? I feel a little, you know, weird going up to the door to say something. How do you think I should handle this? And those are the kinds of things that it was made to handle. Now, the thing that the town had that I wasn't crazy about is they gave the email address for each of the officers, okay? Which is good, obviously. However, the problem is if you have an officer who's out injured or sick or on vacation and you have a problem, you really don't want to wait a week, you know, because we're made to take vacations in blocks. You can't just go willy-nilly. You have to take block vacations. That we can make sure we know where everyone's going, we could relieve them, avoid overtime, and things such as that nature. So the reason they did that is to give them a personal touch to it so they can get directly to that officer without having to call dispatch. However, I didn't like the part they'd have to wait. So what I did is I modified it in the fact that I made all the emails come to me, as everyone I hope would know by now. I'm always around. I always have this. I answer emails and phone calls at all hours of the day and night. I'm glad to do it. So if a resident has a problem, they can email me, the Your Cop inquiry, if you will. Go to my email address, and I can give it to the officer if and when they're around. So if there's a problem that John Butcher has to handle, I just forward it to John Butcher. Hey, John, did you get it? I make sure he gets the email. He'll email me back. I got it. If I don't get an email back from him, I call him. Hey, you got that? No, I got it. I'm taking care of it. And then he will email me with the result with any kind of follow-up. You know, or if it's an email exchange between the resident and the cop, I make them include me, you know, with the knowledge of the resident of all the email exchanges. So most of this stuff happens, it's usually one email, one question. It'll come to me, I give it to the cop, and they pretty much a lot of times take care of it in pretty much one conversation. And they're usually generally fairly, thankfully, easy situations to resolve. I don't know if you remember, one of them was the rock not being moved back. I think it was last year across the old Croton Aqueduct. That actually came in as a your cop inquiry as well. And then I know I got some calls from other people. So that's basically the program in a nutshell. Now the commercial district, which will come in handy too, is Brian Purdy. Brian knows them all up and down North State Road. He is actually injured. He hurt his back. So we're trying to see, it was an off-the-job injury, not an on-the-job injury. So hopefully he's coming back soon, because I'm going to have him obviously help me with some of this stuff. So he has the commercial district, North State Road. He's very familiar with everyone over there. So that is the quote-unquote 9th neighborhood, if you will. So, and that's basically the program in a nutshell.
So I have a question.
Sure.
How do residents of the unincorporated town find out about this program? And if they know about it, do they go to the website and that provides them some blurb and then tells them your email? How?
That's correct. What we did was, I think in end of 2012, beginning of 2013, I don't remember honestly exactly when it was, we had them do a reintroduction. And one of the things that they would have the cops do was go and do a reintroduction of the program, and they'd go door to door and they'd try to knock on doors and meet as many people. The thing that kind of got back to me, once in Starbucks, once in, I remember it, I'm serious, once in Starbucks, once over at Club Fit, and another time when I was actually backing somebody up, somebody pulled along, is generally speaking, hey, it's really nice to have the cop stop by, I like it, but, you know, I know how to use the internet, and I think they'd be better off driving around and patrolling rather than going door to door. As one woman said to me, she says, you know, if I type in Ossining Your Cop in Google, the direct link for the page is the first thing that pops up in Google.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's one of the reasons that I said, okay, the introduction's good, but, you know, instead of doing that and dedicating, you know, a lot to reintroduction, why don't, as you guys notice people coming into the town in your different beats and sectors and patrol, why don't you go up and talk to people instead of periodically doing a whole reintroduction? Because obviously it's not a huge amount of people, but it is, they don't want to rush through. They want to take their time, knock on the door, hey, how's it going? My name's John, and give them a little bit of history, times that by, you know, a few hundred door knocks, you know, even half that by that many people being home, and, you know, it's a little bit of time. So that's why we kind of got away from the reintroduction as far as going out door to door. We figured it'd be a better use of our time and money, quite frankly, in patrol to be driving around to, you know, take a look. And people are good. People will flag us down and say, hey, you know, not for nothing, I don't want to bother you guys, but I have a quick question or I have a quick concern. And then they can handle on the spot right there. And if that person is not, if that's one of the cops that is not the your cop, for example, if Mike DeMeo is driving around and it's John Butcher's section over in Crotonville, you know, he'll give a courtesy, either you know, verbal or even an email to John. Hey, John, just so you know, over 180 Old Albany, you know, Miss Francie, there's something going on over there. So just so you know. And that's kind of how they do it, you know, to keep the actual your cop involved, so it's not a surprise or a shock when they hear something in relation to the original problem.
Okay.
Is there a way that we would be able to put, I just get this feeling that a lot of our residents don't really know about it, or maybe forgot, or
We'll put it on the next update.
Maybe we can put it on, well, no, I'm just saying, maybe we can put some kind of blurb on the town website.
That's where it is. Yeah.
Well, I guess when I say it's there, I mean, when you go onto the home page, you have to scroll down on the left-hand side, and it's probably about halfway down the page, if not a little bit further, where it says police, or there's a tab for your cop. It's not right in the top banner, but
Right.
there's a link to it off the home page. But I guess, I mean, we could certainly, you know,
Maybe, like you
rearrange
said,
that.
put
and
a-
We
make
or
it
can,
a
we
little
can
more-
rotate it into
Yeah.
the,
And
into
that
the
connects
blocks.
with the individual cops?
Yep,
tells
it
you-
has a listing that says like neighborhood 1, and then it has every single street, and then it's in a block, and it says Officer Jeffrey or
Like
Officer Harder.
Neighborhood one's John Butcher's, Crotonville, and some of the surrounding streets of that thing. I mean, one of the two suggestions I had is, you know, obviously, I don't know. I mean, if residents, when they move in, get a welcome packet, you know, maybe that could be put in the welcome packet so they know. Or I don't know if you also have, how'd I say, a message of the day, quote unquote, on regular correspondence, such as a tax bill or something like that, where there's a, I know no one likes getting there, I know, get taxed bill. But maybe there's a blurb on the bottom, that might say, just so you know, you can check your cop,
Yeah,
or,
and we can put it out in
please
the,
be safe, or, something.
right, we can put it out in the supervisor's update, and then
Yeah,
sometimes
something
we
like that.
print them out and give them to the seniors, so that, 'cause some of them don't, go on computers that often, so.
So some kind of regular reminder such as that, and an
Good.
introduction as far as the, a new resident packet,
Okay, North State Road,
North State Road.
North State Road.
which is our commercial corridor.
Commercial corridor. Right. North State Road, obviously, I can't really say, the bulk of the noise complaints right now are from North State Road, from a certain area, let's say. They're fairly spread out amongst the town. 99% of the time, it's, especially with graduation season, I hear something, I hear music, they can stand outside the house, they hear music, it's real hard to know where it's coming from. So we'll get there, we'll go, okay, cop will hear it, kind of drive around, do the spiral, start close, work their way out till they find it. If it tends to be on a border with, the village, we'll let the village know, hey, I'm pretty sure it's coming from 123 Main Street, so to speak. If it's not, and we can find where the music's coming from, and it's clearly audible, after the prescribed hour, 99.9% of the time, it takes a knock on the door to say, your music's really, bugging your neighbor over there. Could you please cut it out? And they'll turn it off, they'll turn it down. By the time anyone really kind of complains about it, usually they're breaking up the party anyway. So.
And I know that Councilwoman Jeffrey has some questions, but one of the ones that comes up a lot is the dog barking, because we have the SPCA down there,
Right.
and across the street from that we have the doggy place, where they bring it.
Pets-A-Go-Go, yeah.
What's it called?
Pets-A-Go-Go?
Pets-A-Go. The doggy.
Doggy place.
Yeah. But, and they keep their, the Pets-A-Go-Go bring all their animals in at night, correct?
They're supposed to bring their animals at night. At the start, I don't think they were.
Okay,
I know we've been over there. I know it's documented we've been over there to explain that to them.
okay.
Well, I'll just
Yeah,
say
please.
we've had a consistent issue with dogs barking. I've lived over there for 6 years. The SPCA has been there before me. We did not hear it that much, so I'm not sure that it is or is not them. I will say about a year ago, we had one who would bark incessantly and was extremely loud. We went down to the SPCA. It was that dog. What was happening was they were leaving the dogs outside because they had too many.
Too bright.
So I think part of the issue is there might be differing reasons, and maybe looking into what the process and the reasonings are could help. But I will say, in the past 3-4 months, 6 months, I'm not great with time. It's been consistent, and it's been 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Sometimes it gets 12 o'clock, and for an hour. I will say, I called the other day, and I had an officer who was very nice, but he informed me that in order for them to create a noise ordinance issue with dogs barking, they would have to bark for more than 10 minutes with no break. So that if the dog barked and swallowed and breathed, that was considered a break. Now, I have to believe that that's not written in the code, because I have the noise ordinance and that's not there. So there is something to be said for the fact that you might have some officers who they have differing opinions about how that ordinance is supposed to be implemented. When a dog is barking for an hour, if it stops for like 10 seconds and then continues, it's barking for an hour.
I agree.
There's no break.
No, I agree.
So what I haven't had yet is anybody come back to me and say, we've located. And have been calling, because I've probably called 3 times in the past 2.5 weeks. But there are some noise issues that are happening. 3 in the morning, you have more and more things that are happening, and I feel like there might be a potential for some consistent patrols happening at times to try to pick up on that, because we're hearing it on Morningside Drive. I think they hear it on the other side. It's not just what's happening on
It's not just dogs. She's talking
Yeah.
about sanitation trucks.
Yeah, there are a few consistent, inconsistent issues.
I just want to say one thing in defense of dogs.
Yes.
They're, if a dog's barking, say, for an hour, usually that means he's alone. They don't usually do that with somebody in the house or wherever they are. Now, if he's outside, he wants to come in probably.
Right, right.
So then now, and how can you?
Well,
You
the
know,
problem
what
is
can you do
that
about
that area has a lot, and we're trying to figure out where it's coming from because it's consistent enough. And what's happening is it's creating chorus. So meaning one bark or two dogs start barking,
Oh,
then
yeah,
those dogs start barking. So it becomes a round
We,
robin.
we don't even, from what I've heard from different people too, it's not necessarily the SPCA nor the
It
dogs.
may not be.
Dog a go-go?
Let's go.
Right,
Let's go.
we're not, that's exactly the issue, is that we're not sure, and we're trying to
So
figure it
when
out,
we-
because then we can decide what the next step is.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I actually walk my dog there. Yeah.
I think we just want to make sure that the officers are sensitive to noise type complaints, because those are the quality of life, community type policing things.
Mhm.
And so that's always something that I want to keep in the forefront. I mean,
Sure. Absolutely. You know, as far as repeated noises or prolonged noises, that obviously that's easy. The problem we run into sometimes, and a lot of people become unhappy about it, is noises that start then stop without our officer there. You know, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's your case. I'm just saying in general, for sake of conversation about the noise ordinance.
right.
The thing that becomes complicated is, oh, hey, I hear a leaf blower, leaf blower, leaf blower, leaf blower. My cop gets there, no more leaf blower. A violation, has to be witnessed by, our officer. Which a dog, I'm sure, barking for an hour. Obviously, if he's barking for an hour, by the time he gets to you, he's still barking. So, I'm not disputing that fact. It just gets complicated with other noises, too, where, they don't hear it, which was relative to a certain other place
Right.
we're going to talk about. They don't hear it, well, there's not a whole lot they could do. So that becomes the key issue too. So
Well,
the
let me
dog-
let me
yeah.
ask you this question: if the patrol is going by and they can't immediately hear or locate, or they get to that place and they're not hearing, must they leave? Can they patrol out and come back? Must they just leave the vicinity and go somewhere else and not come back on their own to see if that's come back?
No, they can come back. Absolutely.
There, as we started off this conversation, there's, I have, and, we had the young lady in front of us last week on camera, and she was talking about Tara Rustica, and I went and visited Tara Rustica, and there's, as we said before, there's two sides to every story, and then there's the middle, right?
Absolutely.
And so I had a long discussion with the owner of Tara Rustica, some of the things that when you wanted, I was talking to our building inspector today about it when we had a meeting with him, and we just want everyone to stay on top of it so that it can be either verified or not verified. Let's put it that way. There's a little bit here and there's a little bit here, and we just need to make sure that we're staying on top. Yeah, I know that some of the sanitation, whether it be we have Suburban down there on North State Road. Whether it be Suburban starting up their trucks and backing up because they make that sensitive beeping noise.
Right.
Yeah, it's a law that you do that so they don't run over anybody. But in my neighborhood, which is across from Chilmark, we get the sanitation trucks between 3 and 4 o'clock in the
Delivery
morning
trucks,
too.
yeah.
So it's hard because it's in the commercial zone too. But you would think that they would wait longer, but again, I don't know what their schedules are.
But the dogs, we could do better. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
pass that along. That's obviously, we'll try to do
And we're going into
try to do
the
better on that.
And we're going into the end of the second quarter, so we all know what that means, that there'll be a massive cleaning at Terra Rustica. So if we just stay on top of them and maybe visit them and have a chat.
Yeah.
And if I can just add, we all, I believe, take very seriously neighborhood complaint issues when it comes to noise. Nobody wants a noisy neighbor. Everybody wants a cooperative neighbor. Some of us are more lucky than others.
Absolutely.
But when it rises to the level of people coming to us on a regular basis, eventually the excuses and the denials seem to give way to that there's probably another reality that the restaurant is probably not owning up to.
Right.
So I just want you to hear it from me that I'm concerned with these constant neighbor complaints.
Right. you know, and as far as the restaurant goes too, I mean, you also have to know that, obviously, you know, leaf blowers and such, you know, there's also complaints too that, you know, well, I don't, you know, if your neighbor's using a leaf blower within the prescribed time, well, you might not like the leaf blower, but there's not a whole lot that I could do about the leaf blower.
Right.
You know, and that comes too. So there's only so much we could do within the law. You know, hey, listen, would I like somebody using their leaf blower constantly at 3 p.m. on a Sunday? Maybe. You know, probably not. But you know, so whatever we can. And last time they did violate the ordinance, though, they were ticketed.
And I think
So-
just as the councilman says and the councilwoman says, just if we stay on top of this situation, I think that would
Absolutely.
help everyone, both parties, and to get
Absolutely.
great. Any other questions? Did you have?
No, I just want to say thank you. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you for coming and
Very welcome. No
being there for
problem.
us.
And I'd like to know the date and time of that officer so I could talk to him about the dog comment. In all seriousness, I kind of would. That's the first step is, you know,
Well, you know,
training.
My name is on your records, I'm sure. If you pull up the
The last
the
time.
last time, it was the last time that I called. I'm pretty sure. Let's put it this way: the time before that, Brian Purdy was the one who came in, and it was later at night, and he was very, you know, he's. I know him, and he was great about it, and he had a partner at the time, a female.
A gentle
The
giant.
next time that I called, I think I've only called twice. It was a younger gentleman who came.
Okay, I'll take a look because I kind of
And
like that.
I'm sure you can see.
And one other thing, between the dogs barking and the people's safety, I think you're doing a good job with the safety part. Never mind the dog barking.
Oh, thank you.
Just do the-
We'd like to try. We
Take care
try.
of the people.
We try.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is, was going to be Mobile Testing USA, and we have decided to withdraw that from our agenda items. And,
Will we come back to that, or?
sure.
Yeah, so it has actually, you know, we were looking into references for the company and so on and so forth, and we were actually approached by yet another company, so we want to wait for their proposal before we go any further. It's actually, you know, one of the major companies in New York State who approached us. I'm not sure if they saw it on our agenda or what exactly happened, but we're meeting with them on Monday. So we're just going to table this for the time being, and hopefully we have something exciting next time.
Okay. Great. Okay, so number 4 on our agenda is zoning amendments for projected projects. So what we did was, I did put in your folders some letters from our planning consultant, David Stolman, and so if you look for that. It might be inside a paper clip.
Ah, yes.
Inside a paper clip. Okay. Council?
Okay, these are both pretty straightforward. The town actually received 2 petitions from property owners, or I think in one case perhaps a contract vendee, requesting a separate amendments to our zoning code. One is a text amendment, meaning a change to the language of our zoning code, and the other one is an actual requested rezoning of a couple of parcels. We'll start with, I think, probably the easier one. Now, when the town board receives a petition to either amend the zoning code or change the code, it's required by our code that the matter be referred to the town planning board for it to review and to make a recommendation. And in this case, in both cases, that was done. And the planning board, which met last week, has approved two separate recommendations for both of them. The first one we'll talk about briefly is the General Electric proposal. As we all know, the General Electric Corporation owns a very large corporate education campus facility up in the Crotonville area. And I believe over the years they've accumulated additional properties as part of that property. And they've been before the board, the planning board many times for various approvals or various changes to or improvements or additions to its facilities, and generally speaking, it has always been very compliant. The corporation owns, actually, they've accumulated other properties and adjacent to their property, and the main body of the property is in what's called the Business Education District. But they also own properties that are in various other districts, including a piece of property which is in the R31 family district, and also a piece of property in the R5 district. Now, they have no current plans to expand their facilities at all at this point, but they have requested that those two parcels be rezoned and to be incorporated into the Business Education District. Now, in looking at the actual properties, et cetera, it does not appear, based on the setbacks that would be required, that there will be any actual development. And as a matter of fact, there is no proposed development. It does not appear, though, that there could be any development actually on those two parcels. Their stated goal is to just make sure that there is an increased buffer area for their property, and they want the property to all be consistent. Technically speaking, by increasing the size of their property, they're within the zone. They may have the potential to increase the density of construction within their property, but the property pretty much exists there without much, I guess, impact on the rest of the neighboring properties. And the planning board reviewed it, didn't really see anything objectionable, and felt that actually was a good. That it was actually good for the town to bring all the property under one ownership into that district, which is somewhat restrictive and would prevent other types of development within those two parcels. One parcel, I think it's the R31, which is a much larger parcel, would otherwise have probably, or the R5 one, I'm sorry, probably could have accommodated several homes, and by allowing or by going ahead with this plan, this would pretty much take that property out of any development potential for that purpose for single-family homes. So I believe you have the recommendation from the board, from the planning board, as this is a matter which has to be addressed by way of a local law, since we're going to be amending the code. So we're going to be required to at the next meeting, assuming the board wants to go ahead, schedule a public hearing, and we also have to complete our seeker process, and upon completion of the seeker process, this board would be empowered to enact the rezoning of those two parcels. I don't know if there's any questions. Like I said, it is pretty straightforward.
Just one quick one, and it's probably irrelevant, but does the change of the zoning also change the tax assessable amount?
Well, the properties are not developed at the current time, and there is no current plan to develop the properties.
As far as vacant land, though,
it's
are
vacant.
they taxed differently?
It's not going to be, well, vacant land is taxed as vacant land. I mean, it's not, there's no other use of it at this point, so its value is relatively minimal to the corporation.
But it doesn't change when you
It
change.
shouldn't change at all the tax assessment capability of the property.
I'm sorry.
No,
Finish?
Yep.
I have one question. Is that in writing any place that they are not going to build? They just accumulating the land for nothing?
Well, they wouldn't agree in writing, to restrict themselves, and nor should they, or has anybody actually come forward and requested that they do that. There may very well be additional development potential on their main campus. That hasn't been fully analyzed, but this particular, as to these particular parcels, there's no building potential on these particular parcels, and these particular parcels happen to be the parcels that are probably most closely contiguous to other residential properties because of the way they're situated. But There was never any discussion or request that they consider any type of additional restriction, and I don't know if that's something that the board is even looking to do.
No, but I kept, somewhere I kept hearing that, you know, it's zoned, not for, like, for instance, one family district is located, well,
There's
Well,
somebody else.
I guess the question is, why do they have to change the zoning to buy it? I mean, they want to.
They already own it.
They already own
Oh, they
it.
already own it.
So I think that was a missing piece. I didn't know that
Yeah,
either.
I thought
So
they
they already own it. It's zoned as family because they bought it up, and now they want to change. Why do they want to change the zoning?
They would like these parcels to be zoned consistent with the rest of their property,
Campus.
their campus property.
But so if they do that, then does that, not that they would necessarily develop on those pieces of land, however, it would then create a bigger amount of land that they can then develop more? Just, I know I didn't ask that well.
I understand what you're saying, and that actually was a discussion that was had before the board. And if you're talking about as a theoretical discussion as to whether or not it increase, having this additional acreage, which they have anyway.
Right, but it's
would-
not zoned in.
Well, it may still actually permit, there are different ways to look at this, but does it potentially increase the total square footage that could be
right.
developed on the entire parcel?
Maybe.
Maybe, or potentially, yes.
But what I guess I'm trying to figure out is, why do this?
Because-
I don't know
I
how
mean,
to
I'm
ask
really
what
asking
thinking,
why.
Well,
why
because
do
they
this?
have a campus, and, we've been through a lot with GE, and GE has done a lot of restructuring and rebuilding, and has determined to stay here. And they really they came in to see us, and they, briefly, because we had to send it back to the planning board, and they simply said, we just want all of our zoning to be the same, and it goes from one house to, what is it called? Business, no,
education.
It goes, there's three zones involved. There's the R5, the R30,
Right.
and then the BE, which is Business Education
Bus-
District.
business education.
That's
I didn't
correct.
realize that they already own
They already own it, and they
Mhm.
just don't
That's what I
want,
didn't
and they just want to make
They would like it to
everything
be
consistent.
consistent.
It's actually out by their heliport.
Yeah, they really wanted to create, according to what, they've at least stated. So, without, again, agreeing in writing to anything in the future.
No,
They just want,
you
want
answered mine.
to buffer their property as much as they can.
Okay. No, but I
And they
didn't
want to make
realize
sure that they
owned it.
can't be additional development, which would impact them. Residential development on their borders, I believe, I guess they feel is like potentially as an impact again, especially with the heliport there. But,
But if they own it, then there's no, they own that, so they are the ones who decide that there's not going to be any development there. I mean, they already own it.
that is correct. You are.
I mean, I guess I understand that they want to be consistent. I find it strange that they want to be consistent now, and I question that.
You may be very right that
I
at the end of the
question why.
day, that they may be looking at it as enhancing their overall property by having it all consistent, and that it does in some way increase the, the total square footage available for development within the parcel as a whole.
Yeah, and so the only question I would have from there is there, if that were to happen, is there any negative impact? Is there any issue that would come out of that? Because,
Right.
I mean, I
Well, the planning board
want
looked
to
at.
look down the road before I start deciding about zoning changes.
The planning board looked at that, and they felt that it was not going to have, that it could not have an adverse impact because of the fact that these parcels, which are essentially contiguous with other residential parcels, could not be developed because of the greater setbacks required for the business
For the business
education
itself.
district.
Mhm.
So even though it may allow for some degree of development or further development on the main part of the campus, it wouldn't directly impact the contiguous properties to these parcels because there wouldn't be any really development that could occur within these parcels.
Due to the zoning of setbacks
They're
for,
due
under
to-
the BDE.
BE's
Well, they
district.
also, they also,
BE's
They also condense all of their buildings into practically smack in the middle of the campus. you know.
So maybe they get extra airspace or something, but it's not gonna affect the neighborhood.
No. If anything, it will just,
That was the opinion of the planning board. They agreed with the recommendations.
problems?
And it
do you have any
was,
problems? Sue? Do you have any problems with?
I mean, no, as long as I have hesitancy.
Okay.
I do. But, I mean, if we really believe, if those pieces of property can't be developed in any way where they would encroach on the residents, like you said it does, if it won't negatively impact those around them, and even if it increases their acreage and they can develop more, but it would be in the middle and it's not gonna get into it, then
Councilperson Jeffrey, I will say this, that you will have a full opportunity, because we're going to have this board will
Yeah.
have a public hearing, and the attorney for
That's fine.
GE will be there.
Oh, good.
good.
And if they can
Oh,
bring good
excellent.
things to light, then it would be perfect for you, right?
Excellent.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
me,
they already own it,
If you
yeah.
own it, then it's yours.
Yeah.
You deal with it, but I didn't realize they own
Right.
it. That's why
So
I-
the second.
Okay, the second one obviously is a little bit more, could be more interesting in some ways, because it involves North State Road, and even though this proposal is not specific to a piece of property, it is in essence attached to a proposal that will be forthcoming regarding a specific piece of property. And this proposal, this petition that came in would be for a text amendment to the zoning code for the GB, or General Business District, which currently does not specifically allow development of what in this case, it would be a memory care unit, or as defined, the definition you'll see in the recommendation letter from the planning board, the residential facility operated by an entity licensed by the state of New York to operate an assisted living residence or assisted living residence with an assisted living program component, which combines dwelling units, communal dining, routine protective oversight, personalized assistance and supportive services, and health care designed to meet the individual needs of persons who need help with the activities of daily living, including but not limited to bathing, dressing, grooming, eating, and in appropriately designed facilities, accommodations for patients with Alzheimer's disease, other forms of dementia, but do not need the skilled medical care provided by a nursing home or convalescent care facility. So even though nursing homes are allowed within the town, there's no specific allowance for this type of facility, and there is a specific proposal that would be coming down the pike, which will actually encompass this type of facility on a property on North State Road. And the amendment to the actual district, the text amendment to the district, covers the entire district. So theoretically, if it's approved, it's not approved for this particular property. It's approved for as a use within the entire district. So what you're analyzing at this stage is whether or not you feel that's an appropriate use on North State Road. And I know it's hard to separate that from the specific proposal, but that's the only place the only stage you're at right now with this particular proposal now.
For general, for North State
Well,
Road
for-
to be zoned to allow.
To add
Right.
this to
Right,
the
right.
zoning.
To the
Right.
zoning.
To add this as an allowable use, that's correct. And in fact, the planning board, the recommendation being made by the planning board is that it be added to the as-of-right uses on North State Road. The particular applicant who petitioned the board for this change had suggested that it be a use with a special permit, but the planning board, after consulting with its planning consultant, decided that it would prefer that this be a as-of-right use, because there aren't any other uses really. It's not consistent with the other uses that don't require special permits. That the board felt it was consistent, and it should be, if it's going to be allowed as a use, it should be under the standard provisions, which has, the setbacks, the bulk requirements, and all the other GB zone requirements.
Which is something we've just went through too, to make it as of right versus.
Correct.
special
Because
permit.
sometimes the special permit is just another layer, but it doesn't really change the substantive nature of a review. It just adds a secondary layer of approval. And the board did not feel it was necessary in this regard. In addition, the board disagreed with the applicant that the planning board should be given some degree of discretion with respect to items such as setbacks, bulk requirements, parking, etc. And instead, the recommendation is that this use be in compliance with all the other dimensional and other requirements and parking requirements set forth within the code at this time. So the board did not feel that it should have discretion to vary from that code, which would require, in the event a proposal comes in which seeks to vary from the code, that they go before the zoning board for a variance. The planning board felt that the use in and of itself was an appropriate use for the GB district, for the general business district, did not have a problem with the use, and felt that it could be, through the planning process, could obviously be properly regulated, designed, and that the proposal, the proposed text amendment should be approved by this board. They didn't feel there'd be any indirect or direct implications or negative impacts to the North State Road Business District, and that it would be within the, I guess, the recommendations of the existing master plan, and that, again, that it would be appropriate to have the use in the particular zone.
Okay. Does anybody have questions?
Yeah.
Again, any proposal, like I said, this is not specific to this, although, of course, you can't
Everything would,
separate it.
you'd still have to go through the entire planning
Exactly.
process.
So let me, if we change it to assisted living, it has to be provided to change the zoning, right? Assisted living, is that the terminology?
Well, it's the definition which I read, which is a
Which-
residential care facility, which is
Okay.
short of a skilled nursing home.
Okay, so nursing home, and any kind of, just short of not hospital, because that doesn't.
It's
that's
not a hospital.
Right.
Right.
So any kind of a nursing care facility, it could be any of those types of things, correct?
Well, specifically, assisted living is not a nursing home. It's a facility, it's a residential facility, but which provides, as the name would imply, assistance with
Right.
certain daily needs of its residents.
So the question I have is, generally, a facility like that, wherever on North State Road or however, is going to be a bigger structure. I mean, generally, I mean, we see many of them around. They're big
Well,
structures.
you got in this particular
But
unit.
we're talking about a general thing.
Yeah.
We're not talking about one particular,
Yeah.
we're not talking about a particular thing. We're talking about in general.
But we're not increasing or not approving anything larger than would otherwise be allowed for any other
On that
use.
property.
That's my
Height-
point.
That's why I
That's
said the
where I'm getting.
height requirements, setbacks, lot coverage, parking, it's all,
Already
it's already
within
in
the
the code.
zoning and the
It's
code.
just adding this this
Verbiage.
particular
right, we're only talking use.
Right.
And that's it for now, and the recommendations are not to relax the code with respect to things such as height and setbacks and parking.
Right.
When it comes to this use, there's no proposal in that respect.
You said something at the end that I kind of feel like I missed. Something about the planning board did not believe that they should have.
Discretion. I think the specific applicant here who was suggesting this was suggesting that the planning board should have discretion with respect to such things as height, lot coverage, setbacks, parking, to vary from the other code provisions. And the board did not feel that it should have that discretion.
It
that this use
themselves should have that discretion.
Right, that it should not have that discretion, that any applicant coming in with a proposal for this type of use should comply with the existing setbacks, site coverage, height restrictions, parking requirements that already exist.
So given that this is a residential use, is it your understanding that residential uses such as this would have a higher parking requirement? So, I mean, I don't know how parking regulations are set for businesses, but usually you have transient people coming in and out. They shop, they do what they have to do, and then they leave, and then you have empty parking spaces. In a
Unfortunately,
residential neighborhood, or
Yeah.
as residential use, you might need
It's not, it's.
5 or 6 more spots, so that even though it's in the general business use, you might actually have a higher parking requirement,
This,
so the.
this is not the residential type of use that, first of all, the residents are not going to have cars.
Right, but there are
and-
buses, and then there are pickups and drop-offs and things like that.
For the
And
residences?
Yeah.
employees.
Well, the residences are
employees.
going to be residing, so, this is
They don't go
particularly,
out.
this is going to be a memory care facility, and
I don't mean necessarily the residents, but I'm just saying it's a different use, and you have different considerations. And I remember sitting in this room again, that there was one group of residents that was upset once because there were lots of buses and lots of things coming into their neighborhood, and it, not that it was good, bad, or indifferent, but that it was different than was ordinarily seen in the neighborhood. And I'm wondering, for this particular use, does this use, a residential use, with employees just the same, does that change any of the parking requirements? It's just a.
well, the board will
That's
take a
good.
hard look at the specific proposal. There are going to be employees who are going to be, obviously, needed to be there on a regular basis. North State Road, for a lot of reasons, is a good place. It was considered a good place for this proposal because of the fact that there is public transportation, and a lot of the workers, it's anticipated that there are going to be a good percentage of the workers who are going to use public transportation to get to and from work.
Okay.
Not all, obviously. And I guess there's, as was asked of the attorney for the applicant, and it was stated, and the sad thing is that unfortunately, the type of patient that, generally speaking, will be in the facility like this, they just don't get as many visitors as they probably should get on a regular basis.
And it does, when you say, you can say residential, like assisted living, but the zoning change talks about Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia as part of what this
Mhm.
facility would be.
Can I ask a question? I'm not saying we would or could, but I want to know if we could. Could the zoning change be made so that it does allow for this, but does have a difference in terms of an additional setback, or can there be provisions put in that if we allow this, that there will be? I mean, the planning board doesn't want discretion. However,
Well, you will decide.
but
because-
I'm asking if
Yeah.
that's something that.
Can it be done? Yes, but you'll have to make a decision whether or not it's appropriate, whether or not it's too restrictive to allow such a business to even exist. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. You'll have your opportunity once again, because again, we're just this is being presented to you tonight, just to, for discussion purposes. However, this is not a public hearing. Like any other local law, seek is required. We need to complete the seeker process as well. And you're going to have an opportunity to hear the public, and opportunity to question the proponent, and also an opportunity to question the town's planning consultant. So, nothing is engraved in stone yet as far as the final version of the law.
And I must say something here. You'll find everybody don't want it in my backyard. And that is about the dumbest thing that you can hear. Now, we just put a animal hospital in there. That's fine.
Yeah.
But people, we got a problem.
I
What is
don't
this?
know that everybody would have loved the animal
It doesn't
hospital had
matter.
they
It's
known.
there. I'm saying that it's there.
Yeah.
I don't think
So-
I don't think that there's gonna be a big. I think it's a different facility that might be bigger, and so there might be some questions about the impendingness of the actual structure, not the people who are in it.
Well,
And so,
I just don't understand.
I don't want us to mistake when we had discussions even about group homes in neighborhoods versus a unit like this in business district too. So we have that too. So we'll put it down to have a public hearing on it, just like the other the two zoning things, and then we'll listen to the public, we'll listen to this particular person, their objectives, and go from there.
And you'll have Mr. Stolman here as well, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Yes. Okay, Parks Project Grant Final Review.
This will be very fast. I'm going to pass down the little arts and crafts project here that has been very long in the making. This is a grant that I believe the town had applied for in early 2010 and received in late 2010. But obviously, this has not really been a pressing matter with all the infrastructure work and all the other things that we've had to do. So basically, the grant was for about $6,000 to do a mailing and basically to get public opinion on our parks. And so we were trying to figure out how exactly we should word this. And our planning consultant, Mr. Stolman, had actually been helping us with this, as well as Henry Atterbury, and then Sue and I have worked on it as well. But basically, if you see what it looks like, it is going to arrive at, and this is only for unincorporated area residents, because even the postage alone for anyone outside of that would exceed the level of the grant. So, when it comes in the mail, it's going to look like this. And the homeowner will open it, and it basically just has very quick questions. Are you familiar with the following town parks? It lists the facilities and features of each of those parks, and then just asks a couple of questions. Please identify any facilities or features which particularly attract you to one or more of the parks. What prevents you from using the parks? Indicate your preference for facilities or improvements to the parks. And then basically, there's just sort of a grid that says, do you think we have a strong need, moderate need, slight need, no need, or neutral for a whole bunch of different athletic programs. And then there are a couple questions just to kind of get the demographics of who's answering the study, and that's it. And then if you flip to the back, what people can do is sort of give any additional comments that they might have. They write their name and address at the bottom here. They fold it inside like this. And then we have prepaid postage on it, which we also paid for as part of the grant. So come back to the supervisor's office by the 1st of August, and we will have a drawing of everyone who does return the survey for a $100 gift certificate to the Boathouse, and then a $100 gift certificate to Keenan House, which we have already and again purchased as part of the grant. So, like I said, this has been a work in progress that predates me by like 2 years even. So this is, a project that's been going on a long time, but since the board has made parks a huge priority this year, we decided that now would be the perfect time to roll it out. So if you have any comments, I'd be happy to take them, but we want to really get these in the mail this week, since we know folks, are in and out on vacation and whatnot. So any comments are welcome.
I think it looks great. I think it's a great idea. I hope we do something with them when we get them back.
Yeah. What actually, and David Stolman can maybe speak to this point, the next time he's around, or I'll ask him to send out a memo to the board. Basically, his office had offered to do the tallying. I would love if we had a requirement for them to actually do tallying, that we would get more than a handful of these returned. I'm hopeful. I think the gift certificates are a good draw.
Right.
But I think there is some guidance in the grant as to how these have to be acted upon. So I don't think it's just send something out in the mail and then put it in a file cabinet someplace. I think there's some guidance as to how we need to proceed.
Great.
And I think that there's a lot of useful information, that can be gleaned from this. So I hope that anyone who's listening who lives in the unincorporated area, keep an eye out for this in the mail, and please return it to us as quickly as you can.
And even though we do understand the towns are in the town general, we've chosen the unincorporated area to receive this questionnaire because we did have a limited grant to do it, and we just had so much funds. Okay.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
if I could. Manny, has this been sent to our Recreation Advisory Board?
It has not been sent to the advisory board, but Henry had been working with me closely on it, and I think he got some ideas from the advisory board when he initially worked on this with Connie. So if that gives you any indication
How long it's
of
been
how
going
long
on.
it's been.
Yeah.
That's been a while.
Yeah. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan review, set up the meeting schedule. So we're going to set up a whole page. We're going to be working on the web page a little bit too, so that everybody understands the comprehensive plan, the proposed zoning changes that were in there, and how we're going to review the whole comprehensive plan. And the schedule for meeting schedule will be July 17th, which is, these are all Thursday evenings. July 17th, August 21st, September 18th, and October 16th. Slowly. July 17th, August 20th, all at 7 o'clock, and they're all down here in this room. August 21st, September 18th, and October 16th. And what we will do is put together agendas of what we're going to discuss at that time as far as the comprehensive plan review is concerned. We know that people will not be able to make it to every meeting, but we wanted people to mark their calendars now. And if we don't schedule a set of meetings, as Kim and I have learned in different groups, that you just start going with people's schedules and it never gets done. So David Stolman will be with us at each of these dates. That's all been confirmed. So it's Thursday evenings, again, July 17th, August 21st, September 18th, and October 16th. And just a reminder that on July 15th, which brings us right into our next topic, July 15th is our next scheduled, we have a town hall meeting every 6 weeks, our next scheduled town hall meeting. And at that particular town hall meeting, we will be discussing our RFPs that we put out on Town of Ossining unincorporated area police services. And we want to thank everyone that answered our RFPs, which was the Village of Ossining, the Westchester County, and the Village of Briarcliff Manor. We will post the RFPs on the web page, and they will be available in the clerk's office as of tomorrow, but we wanted to make sure the board saw them and had copies of them for a few days. We will start our discussions at our July 15th discussion with the board and with the public. Everyone will be more than welcome to come and ask us. We will be having at that July 15th meeting the Village of Ossining and the Westchester County. The Village of Briarcliff Manor chose not to answer the RFP correctly or completely, and chose only to offer police services for District 17 and 20, which is not what the RFP asked for. And so they will not be asked to the July 15th town hall meeting, nor will their RFP be considered. So that's pretty interesting. So, but we do want to thank everyone for putting in the effort that they put in. And when you read the RFPs, you'll see that there's different questions and that were asked, along with the pricing and different information. What's the matter?
Maddie's getting it.
language correct.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm just, no.
on the thing?
No.
Oh, no, yeah. No,
I'm just
I know.
multitasking.
Oh, okay. So I just want to make everyone clear, this is for the, it's for the unincorporated area of Ossining for the years 2015, 16, 17, and 18. And I think everyone did, the two municipalities that will answered our RFP did a great job, and we just want to thank them all for doing that effort. So again, the RFPs will be posted on the webpage as of tomorrow. It will be easy to access from the box on the right. We start moving things around as we get to different topics, but this is a very important one, and we look forward to our discussion on July 15th. Okay? So that's about it for this evening. In our open session, we are going to adjourn into executive session for contracts. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Into executive session.
To executive session.
Discuss contracts? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, and please see us next week. We will be at the courthouse would you give Gary this? At 16, at 88 Spring Street, and we'll be at a legislative session next Tuesday at 7:30. Thank you very much.